Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Wrestling Fluency. Do you speak wrestling? Because we sure do. Welcome to the Ides of March. I'm here with my co-host with the most, the one and only $1 Million Matt. Matt, tell the people how you doing.
We doing all right. We live in large.
Okay. And for those who's listening, you may know me as the one and the only, the Alabama Slammer, Brandie. It's a pleasure to be here again, guys.
Yep. Always being a pleasure here to entertain y'all.
Yeah. So, before we start this episode, I just wanted to take a moment to touch on Scott Hall and the situation that's going on with him. We're recording this on March 13th, and as of now, he is on life support due to a complication from surgery. So, we just want to take the time here to say our thoughts and prayers are with his family. Bad times don't last, but bad guys do. We're hoping you kick out, Scott.
Yep. Amen, man. We're pulling it here for you at the Wrestling Fluency Community right here. So we got you, and hopefully you get a speedy recovery. You get out of this, and we get the bad guys again.
That's right. And also a big shout out to the wonderful, fabulous Bay All Day, Big E, who recently sustained an injury but seems to be in high spirits and got a better diagnosis than he originally thought. So that's great.
Yeah, and I was going to say about that, just seeing that bump, I was just like, oh. But for the most part, like Brandie was saying, he's in high spirits. He seems to be very positive about this. Hopefully, this is not career ending. And speedy recovery, Biggie.
Speedy recovery, my friend.
Yep. We can't wait to see you back.
That's right. Well, Matt, what have you been up to the past few weeks?
Not much. Just trying to keep up with wrestling and all that, and plus the 9 to 5, and on top of that too, having a couple of projects for my drawing and all that. But I'm mostly trying to keep it fun instead of focusing on posting. So I've made it a personal goal for myself to live life offline, live life off the grid, and just kind of take in the present moment. So that's been my thing as of late. And other than that, nothing real special. How about yourself, Brandie?
Well, I feel like every time we talk on this show, something weird has happened to me, and maybe that's just my life, but I had the oral surgery recently. It's been over a week now. I had that situation going on. That's why we didn't record last week, because my mouth was swollen and I couldn't really talk very well. But I'm definitely on the mend from that. That was a very painful and terrible time. Before I was actually chit-chatting with the checkout lady when I was grocery shopping, and she was talking about she was going to have oral surgery, and I was like, I feel better after surgery than before. I was in so much pain before. But we're all good on that situation. Hopefully there's nothing else crazy like that on the horizon. But other than that, just school, trying to maintain healthy relationships with my friends, and keeping that old mental health in balance. I like what you said about trying to live life outside of the internet. I've also been trying to do that. I've got like this goal this year that I want to make some friends, like go out and actually speak and make friends that I hang out with on occasion.
Right. And I actually want to touch on that, Brandie. And it just seems like a lot of people are living their life online and pretty much incorporating and putting it into real life, because there's a lot of social media platforms that put a lot of pressure on people to have a belief that they're not living up to their fullest potential, what they should be. And hey, here's the thing. Life is a marathon, and it's always been a marathon, and it's never been a sprint. So if we were all meant to get to point B as fast as we were supposed to, we would have been there by now, everybody and their mama. But here's the thing. There's a reason why you're part of the journey, and you're a journeyman or journeywoman, and you get there to where you're supposed to be, and it just feels right.
100%, Matt. You are so right. And like, here's the thing. I think that with a lot of people who are kind of positivity influencers, that you don't do. You don't do this. So I want to speak highly of you on this and point this out in the industry.
Right.
The Kim Kardashian recently had this whole thing where she was like, "My advice to businesswomen is to get the fuck up and work." And so no one wants to work these days. I'm like, people are working themselves to death these days. We're getting less accomplished because we're too tired because we don't take the time out to rest and recover. And
Right.
that's why I always like your messages, Matt, because you're like, hey, work your hustle, do your thing, but also you gotta take time to rest, or you're gonna fizzle out and you won't get anything done.
And it comes back to my whole point on this whole thing. At the end of the day, it's all about balance. And to quote the great Mr. Miyagi, balance is real life. Or I could have been butchered in that line, but you get what I'm saying. Or in this case, what Mr. Miyagi was trying to say in the Karate Kid movies. Balance is life. And
sure.
the thing is with that, without balance, things won't make sense or things won't align right, if you catch my drift.
100%. I recently have discovered something, and it seems so stupid when you think about it. But it's like, it's called slow living. It's this whole movement.
Right.
It's like, when you wake up in the morning, you wake up and you don't immediately go for your phone and stuff like that. Like, you carve out time to do things like read a book or relax. So yeah, slow living, look it up. I haven't gone too far into detail about it, but I've just been seeing some on TikTok and stuff back and forth about it, and I'm like, yeah, I feel like I can really get behind this. American life is hustle life. We're a hustle culture to an extreme. So
Yeah.
it's important to go, oh, that's probably not the best way to be.
Yeah. And I will admit, because I'm human, that I kind of fell into the whole thing where I would listen to like a lot of motivational speeches and a lot of motivational speakers saying you got to grind 24/7, this, that, and the third. And I'm just like, to be honest, that might work to an extent, but that sounds like a miserable life at the end of the day. Just like you feel burnout, you feel tired. Now, if it's for you, more power to you. You go do your thing, but at the same time, at the end of the day, you got to have that work and life balance in between. And without that, it just won't make sense and it won't line up. And you end up losing your best currency. And I will say this is a $1 million Matt philosophy. Time is your best currency because you can spend it wisely or you could spend it recklessly. But at the end of the day, it's your time.
100%. And some people, you're so right. Some people, it is for them. Like my brother when he was 17 started training to go to the military. 18 shipped out. He was in the military like 10 years, maybe more. Got out, became a firefighter, first responder. Like that's the chaos, the like constantly on the go. He thrives. That is his best life.
Right.
And my stepmom, his mother is the same way. She's like small business woman, working, going. It's just her personality. So yes, but me, I am I'm like, I'm gonna take a nap today.
Yeah, right. And I could say this, I get my work ethic from my dad because my dad is a very hardworking man. So is my mom. My mom's very hardworking herself to her, right? But also at the same time, they also know how to slow it down and take time with their family because I know there's a lot of moments that I've had with my dad that were awesome where he was like, you know what? I'm going to take a day off. I'm going to spend time with my son. And those were great, important moments in my life to me, and I will never forget. that my dad has done that for me when he could have just stayed at work the whole time and never connected with me.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's get into the topic at hand, shall we?
Yep, absolutely. Brandie, take it away.
All right, so this episode, as you guys know if you clicked on it, is we're entitling it about the Ides of March, right? So it's wrestling betrayals. We're gonna get a little black backstory. I almost said black story. Is this the Black History Month episode again?
Yeah. You got the last episode on your mind there, Brian?
Well, it was a very good episode. So,
Oh yeah, totally.
I was really proud of that one. I thought
Oh
I had such a
yes,
good time recording it.
yeah, same here. And I've even listened back to it multiple times, and I really enjoyed it. It was very refreshing.
I think it had a good response. Um, the backstory on the Ides of March is so the Ides of March is the first 2 weeks up to the 15th ish of March.
Right.
And some significant stuff has happened during that time. One in particular that is kind of the inspiration, if you will, for this episode was the assassination of Julius Caesar. Now, if you are not familiar with Caesar, so Caesar was the dictator in Rome, and he was actually stabbed to death as part of his assassination to change the government kind of deal. And this happened back in the day on actually March 15th. And so it was like this whole ordeal where even his friend, it's where the term et tu Brute comes from. It means you too, Brutus. Like, because Brutus is his friend. So he was betrayed by all these people. So Mark Antony steals his woman. And everybody kill him.
Yeah.
Even his friend stabs him.
Yep.
So,
so that was even more of a deeper dig.
they did what they had to do.
Yep.
He
Exactly.
was defeated by a group of senators on the Ides of March, which is March 15th, on 44 BC, during a meeting of the Senate. Anyway, going with that, when we were trying to pick a theme for the show, I was like, let's do Ides of March and let's talk about betrayals in wrestling, which Matt was immediately on board with.
Oh yeah, absolutely. As soon as I heard Ides of March, I was just like, wait a minute, isn't that the Caesar thing? And then I put two and two together. I was like, oh, wrestling betrayals. As soon as Brandie explained it, and I was just like, holy cow, let's do it.
Because like the betrayals in wrestling, they're just such a huge part of like the lore of different characters. I mean, every heel turn is pretty much a betrayal of a teammate, a betrayal of management, a betrayal of the fans, So it fit really well with I I think they should even have an angle on one of these shows where they have a betrayal and like they overthrow Vince McMahon or something.
Right. Yeah.
Get real Caesar.
Oh man. Yeah, that would be pretty much a dream angle for every wrestling fan, especially with things that are going on nowadays. I mean, the Bruiserweight Pete Dunne just became Butch. That's the best you can come up with, WWE creative. I'm not trying to roast you. I'm just saying that's the best you can come up with.
Okay, yep. So what Matt and I have done is we have gone through and found some feuds that we are interested in talking about today.
Oh yeah.
And I forgot to pull up the little list that you sent, Matt. Here we go.
All right.
Matt, kick us off with one of your betrayals.
Okay, so one of my betrayals is a top one for me. It's at the top of my list. And this one is near and dear to me because, as y'all know, Macho Man Randy Savage is one of my all-time favorite wrestlers. And this is when the Mega Powers imploded because Macho Man claimed that Hogan had lust in his eyes, yeah. Showboating and hot dogging, yeah.
I as well looked into that one, and that's a phenomenal one. Maybe one of the most prolific in wrestling.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and it was a great build up to WrestleMania 5.
they played it so well because they had it. It went on for like several months, like almost a year
Mm-hmm.
maybe. Where
Yeah, right around there, and it
yeah,
was building up too.
Hogan wasn't it like Hogan cost Randy the Royal Rumble or something like that, or like
Yeah.
eliminated him by accident,
Mm-hmm.
and then
Yep. It all sparked from there.
the night that it actually imploded was when Elizabeth wound up getting hurt and Hogan carried her backstage and Randy had to fight it, by himself.
Yep. And
The mic work, or not the mic work, but the backstage segment between those two,
yeah,
you were
we're,
doing
we're,
some of
we're
the
yeah,
wording.
right where Hogan was literally kneeling over Elizabeth, praying to God, saying, "Oh God, please don't let her be hurt, or don't let her die, or something to that effect." But just the emotion behind that segment was crazy. And then on
Mm-hmm.
top of that, Macho Man just coming in all pissed off and angry, saying, "You got lust in your eyes for Elizabeth. I knew it the whole time." Just getting very paranoid and very insecure and jealous.
Yeah, he's it is captivating. If you haven't, as a wrestling fan, as a modern wrestling fan, if you haven't seen it, go back and watch it. Like it feels just like two dudes really fighting about this.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and it's just one of those feuds that just really stuck out. And the thing was, although they were two powerhouses coming together, with Macho Man having his popularity and Hogan already being an established star and being the WWF at the time Golden Boy, just coming together and being a tag team, we were like, okay, this is good, but at some point egos are going to clash.
Hmm. And it's this feud that really, really launched Randy Savage and Hogan's feud, which
Hmm.
became like a just a huge historic feud for both of
Hmm.
them and elevated both of them. Even though Hogan was already up there,
Yep,
you
sure.
you can't think about Hulk Hogan and not think about Macho Man Randy Savage
Oh
and this
yeah,
feud.
absolutely. And although Macho Man was a bad guy, I was still rooting for him because Macho Man was my dude.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I knew that would be on your list, and it's
Oh,
on my list also. It was awesome.
oh yeah, absolutely. And
So,
so I was gonna say, so on that note, I was gonna say, what is the first on your list, Brandy?
well, this is one that you may not have thought about in the same way, but I consider it a betrayal. And it's when Hulk Hogan betrayed the fans and joined the New World Order.
Believe it or not, that was actually on my list.
Is yeah,
Yep.
it's I take that was again a prolific turn, a cornerstone of professional wrestling when Hogan turned on all the Hulkamaniacs.
Oh yeah. And I was gonna say, believe it or not, at the time, I think the WCW fans were getting a little bored and thought that the Hulkamania, eat your vitamins and say your prayers kind of shtick was basically wearing out its welcome because we were transitioning into a time where fans were looking for something a little more reality based and something to relate to, and that's where the NWO came in, and that's when, although they were bad guys, a lot of people gravitated towards them. Even I became a fan at the time. I was just like, dude, these guys are cool.
Well, they just had their finger on the pulse of popular culture at that time.
Oh
And like
yeah.
that's what happens with wrestling is sometimes they have a moment where a group will just have their finger on that pulse and it
Hmm.
will just be so right. It just fits so well. And that
Hmm.
was definitely a thing with NWO. I even remember I liked the Wolf Pack a little, like for a little while, although that got kind of old for me.
Yeah, it got a little stale.
It did. But that original NWO run was, I mean, just one of the most important storylines ever in wrestling. So,
Great. And yeah, and I was gonna say, to add to that point too, Brandy, the NWO at the time, they looked like a threat. Like they were going backstage and beating up Arn Anderson and lawn darting Rey Mysterio in the trailers,
mhm.
and it just made them look very menacing and very threatening. Like they could literally do some damage. It's almost like in relation to comic books when Thanos snapped everybody out of existence and stayed on his goal of doing that, getting the Infinity Gauntlet and collecting all the stones and doing whatever he could, including throwing his daughter off of a cliff. Sorry for those that didn't watch Avengers Infinity War, but fast forward through this part if you're not looking for spoilers. But anyway,
the
back to the
is
NWO.
one of those things where you have three independently established superstars who are tough guys, and then they come together, and it's like, whew, Lord, you know, what a team! Yep. And they just had amazing chemistry together.
Yeah.
I mean, Scott Hall, especially for the 90s era, was a very attractive man. We all know Diesel was big, sexy, you know.
Yep. Kevin Nash. I actually used him a lot on WCW NWO Revenge. He was one of my go-to guys because I really always loved the Jackknife Powerbomb. I just thought that was a very devastating powerbomb.
Yeah, it was. Especially when it did on little guys, I was like, they're dead. That's
yeah, they are toast.
Okay, well, that was one of my top betrayals. What's another one of yours, Matt?
All right, so this one sticks out to a lot of wrestling fans, especially me, since I was an 80s baby, 90s kid. And I was going to say, you know where this is going. I was a fan of the tag team, the Rockers. I just thought they were really cool guys. And the betrayal that sticks out to me was when Shawn Michaels turned on Marty Jannetty and threw him through the barbershop window.
Mm-hmm. That's on my list also.
Yeah, just the idea of seeing the super kick, and then after that, Shawn throwing Marty through the barbershop window. As a kid, I was like, "What are you doing to Marty Jannetty?"
I know. And see, they had teased tension between those two for so long, and this is pre-internet, so a lot of people didn't have someone being like, yeah, they're going to turn so and so this week, you know. So when, especially these we're talking about in the 90s, when this happened, they were genuinely surprises. In fact, that brings up the point that I wish that wrestling companies now would take more care to guard kayfabe again. I don't want to know that turns are coming before they turn. I like to be surprised.
Yep, exactly. I mean, AEW and WWE is both guilty of this, and I will say that you basically kill the magic. And I've actually said this before in a previous episode where we were talking or discussing about kayfabe, and it just seems like because of the internet and because of backstage secrets and dirt sheets, we know what's coming. We know when a heel turn is coming. We know when a betrayal is coming. And like I said, it just kills the magic.
Yeah. Well, for some reason, people are obsessed with the idea of not getting worked. The thought of getting worked and falling for something. They're just like, oh, God, no, not me. I'm a smart fan. And I'm like, look, in the beginning, I'm sure it was like it was really fun to know, hey, so-and-so's coming back on this day, or I heard a rumor, this or that. But it's progressed to the point that nothing is a surprise. Everything is always spoiled. How can you enjoy the product? And I don't know if this is a byproduct of being the on-demand generation, but I don't read spoilers for things anymore. I want to be surprised. I want to feel that magic that made me fall in love with wrestling. I don't need to know all that. It's a TV show. I know that it's scripted. I don't care. Tell me the story. Sell me the story. How can we as fans complain that they don't sell us the story when we do everything in our power to keep them from doing it?
Right, exactly. And it's just like a lot of the fans go through every nick and cranny dirt sheet to find out all these secrets and all these rumors on who got signed, who's going to make their debut, who's coming back from injury, and all these other things that have happened in wrestling. And it's just like, y'all are killing the magic your damn selves.
I don't want to know. Just show up.
Yeah. Zip it. Zip it, the bear. Yeah,
Okay.
but that was one of mine. That was another one of mine. What's another one of yours?
Here's another one that you might not have thought of. But taking it back, getting to the 90s, early 2000s, and I'm going to say when Stephanie McMahon swerved on Vince and we find out that she wanted to be with Triple H.
Oh,
yeah.
I didn't think of that one.
Betrayal. That was daughter against dad.
Oh, that's a good one. I didn't even think of that one.
Yeah.
Yep, that was a good one, especially for the fact that you didn't see it coming, and the whole thing where she sold it after Triple H posted that video of them in Vegas getting married through a drive-through, and her having that sort of quote-unquote raw emotion where she was saying, I hate you, and then Test was upset because she was pretty much there to marry Test, and come to find out, she actually wanted to be married to Triple H just to defy her father.
Yeah, and so it's like this iconic moment where Stephanie's in the ring and she's wearing her good girl Stephanie outfit before she started with her boobies and whatnot. So she's wearing her little shirt and her black pants and her black jacket, and she's got the sledgehammer, and she's going to hit Triple H, and she winds up not doing it, and Triple H gets it and whacks Vince, and the match is over. She turns and just does her Stephanie McMahon sneer.
Yeah. Which I will say, to me, I was just like, oh, well, hello, Stephanie. Like, you look very attractive with that cocky little sneer.
For me, I was just like, Triple H must have something going on we don't know about.
Yeah, how about that?
Oh, my gosh. But yeah, so that was another instance that led to amazing moments. It's an integral part of wrestling history.
Yeah, and also with that, coming to think about it, Stephanie actually came into her own. I mean, aside from Vince, she was one of the most second probably hated heels in sports entertainment at the time, because the whole McMahon Helmsley era thing, oh my God, I don't think nobody around that time was more hated than that whole era of Stephanie McMahon and Triple H.
Yes. Stephanie McMahon's title run, when she had the women's title, I think that might be the peak of people hating Stephanie McMahon, because not only had she done this shitty thing, she also had gotten her greedy little hands on the women's title and was keeping all our favorite women from having it. So that was a magical time in wrestling. That was a magical storyline. Phenomenal.
Yep,
and again,
definitely.
Probably could be done in this current era of leaks and everybody trying to figure everything out.
Yeah, exactly. When we're in a world full of tweeners where fans are so fickle that they don't even know who to root for and who to boo.
True. Yeah. But that was one of those moments that, like, it happened and you were like, oh my God!
Yep. Yeah, it was one of those where I was just like, holy cow, I did not see this coming. Sweet little innocent Stephanie now became bad girl Stephanie.
Bad girls, beep beep.
Yep.
Okay, Matt, what about you? What's your next one?
Okay, so here comes my next one, and we're gonna go back to the early 2000s for all my fellow gamers that don't know. This was a little bit after the SmackDown Here Comes the Pain era, when Randy Orton finally defeated Chris Benoit, and then later on was betrayed by the stable that he grew up in and became an established star. and that is the thumbs down moment when Evolution turned on Randy Orton.
Absolutely. Again, another one of those moments that, like, the landscape of wrestling wouldn't be the same without it happening. That whole era launched Batista. It was a big part of Triple H's career, and it launched Randy Orton.
Yep.
And yeah, no, that was a very, you can vividly remember it, just like Randy with his title being so excited, getting turned around to face Triple H, and then just got thumbs down, and Randy's face sinks.
Sinks like, oh shit. Like I have no time to run now, and just catches this brutal beatdown from Triple H and Randy Orton and Batista, excuse me. And if I'm not mistaken, I think didn't Flair having a couple shots, or was it mostly Triple H or Batista?
I think Flair did the whole jacket throw and a couple of his Flair kicks.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Of course, Flair is going to do his Flair stuff with the woo and throw down the jacket.
Yes, always. He always throws that jacket at people.
Yeah, but I think Triple H dished out most of the punishment for the most part, and then Batista did some stuff.
I remember, the one I remember the most is Triple H literally mounting him and just punching him.
Oh yeah, his usual brutal Triple H cerebral assassin, I'm a brutal heel type deal beatdowns that he has put on different opponents.
Well, piggybacking off of that, I also want to talk about the betrayal that was a different kind of betrayal.
Mm-hmm.
And that was when Batista turned on Triple H and Flair a few years later. If you remember, he won the Rumble, and
mm-hmm.
Triple H was the Raw champion at the time.
Right.
And like, they were trying to set it up like, come on, Dave, go get the SmackDown title and we'll rule the whole thing. And that was Dave, his face turn was betraying Triple H and Flair, and it was this long haul storyline.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's another good prime example of how everybody in Evolution, everybody's career, whether it was Triple H, Randy Orton, Batista, and even Ric Flair, everybody's career just elevated. And Batista, we all knew eventually Batista was going to break out on his own, become a beast, and literally be a legend in his own mind. But for the most part, we knew that he was going to break out and become the star that he was meant to be, and that's awesome. And a little bit going forward into the modern version, it also reminds me of when Wardlow finally broke free of MJF.
Mm-hmm.
It was just that moment where this guy's a star, the potential that he possesses, and he's just meant to be a star. And hopefully with this new storyline, it goes forward and there's some kind of payoff, and definitely makes Wardlow a star and pushes him to the moon. And hopefully we get that same effect from that we did with Batista years back. Ooh.
I know, I was looking at our little thing and the Chris Jericho Cruise thing started playing. I was like, wait, no! I was trying to look at the next part of the list. But speaking of the list,
mm-hmm.
Who's next on your list?
What is next on my list? The next one would be when Eddie Guerrero, one of my all-time favorites, again, turned on his longtime friend, but also had some of the greatest matches with him, Rey Mysterio.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Mm-hmm. And this was a little bit around the time where Eddie was claiming Dominic was his son. And I'm going to lay out a fun fact, too. I still have an I'm Your Poppy t-shirt.
Oh, I loved those shirts. I would still keep mine if I had one.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was a cool shirt, and I was just like, I cannot get rid of that shirt. That has so much sentimental value to me. And on top of that, like I said before, I was always an Eddie Guerrero guy. But back to the feud, that feud just had amazing storytelling and just literally showed Eddie's resentment for Ray, just for the fact that it seemed like Ray was getting a little bit better than Eddie, which Eddie did not like. So for that kind of storytelling and exuding that kind of emotion, plus bringing Dominic into the fold, it was just awesome because it was raw and it was unexpected and created a lot of drama. And that's what you want when you have a good TV feud. You want to be compelled, you want to see the bad guy get his ass kicked, and you want to see the hero triumph.
Yes, precisely. And there have been a lot of great heel turns, and then there have been some crummy ones, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about one that was a phenomenal heel turn for me. It happened in NXT, and that is when Kevin Owens turned on Sami Zayn.
Oh, I don't have that on my list. That's a good one.
Yeah, I'm a big Sami Zayn fan, and I especially was back then. And so, he goes through all this, and he wins the big match, and Kevin comes out there, and he hasn't been in the company long, and they're like best friends. It was his debut, I believe. Yeah, I believe it was Kevin Owens' debut. And then he just had the powerbomb on the
on the apron.
The apron, yes, the apron bomb. And that just led to this amazing feud between Sami and Owens, and should fight forever, that whole thing.
Oh yeah, that was great. And the crazy thing about it was we didn't see it coming, but also at the same time, I'm familiar with Kevin Owens' Ring of Honor work, so I was just like, he can't be a babyface for too long. He's Kevin Owens. He's great at it. He's great at being a heel.
Yeah. Well, he was a babyface for about an hour and a half in that company
Yeah, basically.
before turning on his best friend.
Yep, definitely. In order.
That's an example of one of the modern era where it worked.
Yep. And on top of that, too, adding to just piggybacking off of that whole betrayal and heel turn was that Kevin Owens actually had a motive. He actually had a motive on why he turned his back on his best friend. And I've said this before, and I had a conversation with someone about this. That's what makes a great heel. And that's why if you notice, a lot of fans nowadays relate to the heels. Heels believe in what they're doing. No matter wrong or right, they believe in what they're doing and they believe in their purpose and they believe it's right. Doesn't matter what anybody else thinks.
Yeah, this was to set up Kevin Owens, and I use this as an example a lot when I talk about characters should have a reason for why they do the things they do. Kevin Owens was very straightforward. I'm a prize fighter. I'm here to win titles and get big payouts to take care of my family. Pure and simple. F anyone who's in the way. And that includes you, Sami. You're my family, but you're not my family. Like that was such a good if like independent wrestlers out there, younger people who are wanting to get into wrestling, take a look at that as a good modern example of how to tell a story, a betrayal story, especially.
Right. And that's a good start off for a blueprint on how you get over as a heel. And it comes back to my point of having a motive on why you're doing something. I was going to say, not to give any spoilers, but I actually seen the Batman movie, and that's why the Riddler in that movie compelled me. Like, I didn't think I'd like Paul Dano as the Riddler, but he did an amazing job because he made the Riddler, he gave the Riddler basically a different look where he is very sadistic.
Yeah.
Comical,
I haven't
but
seen it
sadistic.
yet, but I have seen people praise his performance.
Oh, yeah. And no disrespect to Jim Carrey. I love Jim Carrey, but Paul Dano killed it.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just two very different
Oh, yeah.
ways that was played.
Right. It's comparing apples and oranges, which I feel that. But oh, speaking of NXT, here's a good betrayal, and I'm not sure if it's on your list, Brandie, but when Tommaso Ciampa turned on Johnny Gargano
You know, it was
in one of the
not on
takeovers.
my list, but yes, that was a very emotional turning.
Yep. And it was just one of those things where it was the same effect I had when Shawn Michaels turned on Marty Jannetty from the Rockers, where I was like, oh no.
How could you?
Yep. But it was one of those things where Ciampa had a great motive where he was tired of being held down by a weak partner and wanted to win championships. And he figured, if I can't win it with a partner, I'm going to do it by myself, which is very simple A, B, and C motives right there on why he betrayed his tag team partner and best friend.
And you know, they were having phenomenal matches together as a tag team, but that feud launched them to like a cult-like status among wrestling fans. It was so well done. They were already both so talented. The story they told was amazing. Definitely, again, a great example from the modern era.
Oh yeah, definitely put in a lot of good storytelling. Actually, also that is another good blueprint for any wrestlers coming up that want to know how to get over as a heel and perform a great betrayal, whether it's an independent show or on any large platform like WWE or an AEW.
Yeah.
That's a great way to do it.
So another turn that I think it's one that we kind of saw it coming, but the lead up to it and the actual turn was just so good that you can kind of forgive that we saw it coming. And that is when Owens turned on Chris Jericho during the Festival of Friendship.
Yes, that was also on my list.
Yeah, that was a phenomenally hilarious.
Oh yeah, it was great,
Those
especially
two
that
together.
painting.
That painting. I'm sorry, I had almost forgot about the painting, and then when you mentioned it, I saw it in my head. So ridiculous.
Yep, that's the one thing that sticks out to me during that whole thing, the painting.
The creation painting in there, like, oh my gosh, that was such a fun time.
Oh yeah,
Together, like that's why I kind of was sad to see Kevin Owens re-sign, because I would really have loved to see more Owens and Jericho down in AEW, which we may still get at some point. But that was just, I could go back and watch every segment that they had together from that time and just be happy.
Yep, definitely, and it made you happy as a wrestling fan, and on top of that, you had fun watching that whole feud unfold.
Yeah, and you know what the thing is that there were a lot of comedic elements to that, and like people shit on comedic wrestling a lot, but there is a way to do it and do it well, and that's what Owens and Jericho had. They had
Yep,
comedy, this like brotherhood kind of going
yep,
on, even
yep.
leading up to like Jericho opening a thing and it being the list of KO, and he's on it. That's still a humorous thing when you
Yeah,
think about it.
yep,
But then like Owens just comes in and starts beating the crap out of him out of that.
right.
Really well done.
Yep,
Humor done very well. And
yep,
again, it helped launch a stigma that kind of still follows Kevin Owens, like the Sammy thing and the Jericho thing. Like people know that you can't trust Kevin Owens now. It's an
yep.
integral part of his character, whether he be a good guy or a bad guy. You know, it's something that's always present in the fans' mind about him.
Yep, exactly. And touching on that too, it reminds me of a YouTube video that I watched involving Kevin Owens and Jericho, and it was basically almost like a sitcom. They did like a parody sitcom intro to involving Kevin Owens and Jericho doing the Friends intro, but they just added like Monday Night Raw clips to it, just like they had basically, I guess, Kevin Owens and Jericho being like kind of like Rachel and Ross involved. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the episodes or the show Friends, but you can thank my sister for that one with me being familiar with it because she loved Friends. But they kind of had that whole dynamic, and when I seen that, it was hilarious. I thought it was tastefully done. I was just like, wow, they could possibly be WWE's version of Ross and Rachel.
I can see that. I love Friends, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was one on my list. You got another one on yours?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And this is also involving Chris Jericho.
Oh.
So this is a little bit up to speed. And it's funny that this was done around this time and around this topic, and nothing like catching lightning in a bottle. And that's when Jericho turned on the tag team that he mentored, Proud and Powerful, to form the Jericho Appreciation Society. And this was on a current episode of AEW Dynamite. I just thought that was fun. I just thought that was so hilarious because they got Jericho, they got 2.0, they got Daniel Garcia, and they got Jake Hager.
I swear, only Chris Jericho could pull off half the shit that he puts on.
Yeah.
If it was anyone but Jericho doing it, you'd be like, no, that's stupid.
Yep. And here's the thing. Wrestling, for the most part, is stupid. It's supposed to be stupid. It's supposed to be a bit hokey. And as a wrestler, when you're evolving and you're trying to change and keep up with the modern time in wrestling, you're basically throwing shit to the wall and hoping it sticks. So, what do you want out of your entertainment? You got to try something.
Exactly. Wrestling is so interesting because as someone who has done stand-up comedy relatively successful in the past, people like ask you questions about it, and I'm just like, you have to just feed on your audience and be really in tune to what gets over with them and be prepared to lean into that. So I could have a set, because doing comedy, especially stand-up, you pretty much write a monologue.
Right.
And then you get up there and you try it and see what works. And so I have practiced the monologue before in front of my friends, and then I get up there and I start using it, and like the jokes are the same, but there's ad-libs, there's things added, there's this, there's that, and it winds up being completely different. It always amazes them. I'm like, it's because you have to be reactive with your audience. And that's the thing with wrestling that I think gets left to the wayside a lot more now than in previous years, because now everyone is just really focused on being these phenomenal athletes, being able to execute these crazy intense moves, to where the part where you are telling a story and interacting with your crowd gets left to the wayside.
Yeah, exactly. And I was actually talking to one of my followers from my art page, and me and him talk about wrestling every now and then. If we could get a superstar that has that great healthy balance of size, wrestling ability, and charisma, guaranteed and more than likely that person would flourish, because you would have a total package of a superstar. And we're not talking about Lex Luger here, but the thing is, we would have if we could have 5 or 10 superstars like that, whether they're signed to AEW or WWE. Oh my God, I would tune in to see that guy or girl every week.
Yeah, I agree. And it's just gonna take it's just gonna take a shift in like booking and how bookers book. The problem is that the vocal community about wrestling online happens to be those people who see a match like, a couple of weeks ago, Darby Allin and Sammy Guevara had a match for the title, and it was not a bad match. There were many parts of it that were really good, and there's no denying that both of those men are very talented. But it was long in the tooth on some stuff. There was a lot of unnecessary risk taken. There was a lot of unnecessary moves. There was a lot of no selling things or selling things short. That takes you out of the moment. But the problem is that you've got these fans that are addicted to that kind of stuff. Like 90 miles an hour. They don't know anything different. And then you get people like Tony Khan, who is doing his best, and I applaud the job he's doing, but he books these guys and lets them go out there and do stuff like that, and I'm like, it's amazing that they are athletic enough and talented enough to do that, but they don't need to. They need to tell a story, because your show is not a gymnastics show, it's a wrestling show.
Yeah, exactly, and
it's
goes
Broadway with body slams.
Yeah, and going back to, I'm sure we've had a conversation about this, Brandie. It goes back to what Mr. Tom Pritchard said. You don't have to do too much to get over. All you have to do is wrestle a match, be able to tell a story, and get the fans invested in it, and hoping that the last match didn't take the wind out of their sails. And hopefully now you got to work your ass off to try to get over and try to get the crowd excited, especially if you're the main event. If you're a part of the main event, you have to deliver. You're the main reason why people are in the building. Because if the main event doesn't deliver, then I'm just going to say a bold statement. Your show sucks. It doesn't matter what matches happen beforehand or anything like that. Your show sucks if your main event does not deliver. And that is my 2 cents on that.
I think that's well put, Matt. I agree. I forgot. Okay, we were talking about Owens and Jericho. So now, what about you? You got any more?
I got another one, and this is going a little bit in a different direction, and this involves one of the divas actually, and also happens to involve Chris Jericho, and that's when Trish Stratus turned on Chris Jericho and left him for Christian.
Yeah, I was genuinely surprised when that happened.
Yeah, I was like, I think we all were. It's just like, oh wow, oh okay. I guess that love angle is done.
I know. I remember when that whole thing was happening. I was like, these skeevy guys, they're terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And then when Chris turned on Jericho, I was kind of like, good for you. Good for you, Chris. I mean, I don't know why you'd want to be a Christian, but good for you. That makes me think, pairing Trish romantically with people in WWE just never really worked. They tried to pair with Jeff Hardy for a while. That never really worked.
Right.
They would pair with Christian for a while. That worked for a small amount of time, but you didn't really see them as a couple as much as you saw them as people who were like mutually using each other.
Right.
So Trish never thrived in a romance storyline.
Yeah, and the thing was, and this is a stigma that WWE had at the time when Trish Stratus was active on the roster. They gave her the hot girl in school type feel, hot girl in school, or the new girl that started at the office, the hot new intern, and it just never really clicked with anybody. Matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, didn't they have like a whole Shelton Benjamin walking into the locker room and an unsuspecting Trish had nothing but a towel on?
Yeah.
Yeah, they tried to do that and it just did not work.
It just never really worked for Trish. I don't know why. Like they even had her have like a situation where she kissed The Rock and it didn't work. And
Yeah.
it's like, if you can't get a
Yeah.
relationship angle with
Yeah.
The Rock over, you're just not
Yeah.
going to get one over. Trish was
Now,
just meant to stand alone.
yeah. Now, the only way I will say it did work was the whole thing where Trish was having Triple H show her wrestling moves and
Yeah,
caught her in that compromised position, and then you hear Stephanie say, "What the hell is this?" And then you
yes,
see Triple
such
H
a
with the
funny
deer in
moment.
headlights look.
That was hilarious. That's definitely by far one of my favorite moments.
I was
Stephanie
just,
and Trish's feud that they had in the beginning
mm-hmm.
was one of my favorite women's feuds.
Oh
It
yeah,
was
that was a good.
so a feud a woman would have.
Yeah, yeah. That was definitely a pretty good feud, and it just made you. It just got you invested and interested. So yeah, that was pretty dope.
I don't
So
have very many women stuff on my list. I will say that the only one, I mean, I didn't even think about that one, but that one is a good one. Um, it's definitely interesting. Or I thought about the Jericho and Christian and stuff like that. I didn't put it on here. The woman's one that I put on mine was when Becky Lynch finally snapped on Charlotte.
oh
And it wasn't
yeah.
really so much a betrayal as it was finally getting comeuppance,
Mm-hmm.
but technically a betrayal.
Oh yeah, definitely. It. You knew it was coming. You knew it was going to happen. It was just a matter of when.
Mm-hmm. Um, let's see. So the last one of the last ones from the '90s that I have on my list was Owen turning on Bret Hart
Oh, that was last on my list.
for the most successful brother versus brother.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just one of those things where the younger brother is jealous of the older brother, and it's like, hey, how come I'm not being part of the conversation at family dinner? It just gave you that general, genuine feel of why is my sibling getting more attention than me?
Yeah, and they played it beautifully. Both of them did.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's like I said before, I wish Owen Hart would have definitely lived a bit longer and got his flowers and got his just due, because Owen to me was just very appealing. Like, he had a look to him. He had an awesome move set, which inspired a lot of hybrid wrestlers, because he was probably one of the first hybrid wrestlers I've ever seen. And although I will say in the 90s, I was a big Bret Hart guy, but Owen just stood right there neck and neck with Bret, in my personal view.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and definitely. And as time goes on, he gets recognized more and more. It's just like you said. Wish he was around to give his flowers.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah, but like WWE has done brother versus brother before, and not to great avail other than this feud between the
Yeah.
two of them.
Yeah. And I'll mention this brother versus brother feud, the Hardys, when they turned Matt against Jeff. I mean, it worked for a little bit for the most part, but also at the same time, I wish they would have made it a little more intense. And maybe that's just me nitpicking, but I wish they would have made it a little more intense or made it a little bit more of a blood feud. But that's just me personally.
So I will say that Matt turning on Jeff is on my list of. I have like two that I set to the side that I just did not like, and that is one of them. One,
Mm,
it was originally so the whole thing was that somebody was messing with Jeff Hardy. Someone was messing with Jeff Hardy.
mm-hmm.
Originally, it was supposed to be a returning Christian, which would have been a much better
Mm,
story. But
all right.
it got leaked that it was supposed to be Christian, so they swerved and went with Matt Hardy, and there was just no build up. There was no like really why, because everything had previously been done to depend on the fact that, of course, Jeff Hardy's getting fucked with. He's fighting with Edge. The Hardys have
Yeah.
a long history with Edge and Christian. Of course, Christian is coming to help Edge. Um,
Right.
so, and later in life, I did not. Matt, I didn't mind the Edge and Christian turning on Edge. It was predictable. We saw it coming. I don't consider it. I mean, it was a big point in Christian's career because it's when they both went solo.
Yep.
But I don't, as far as the lore of wrestling goes, I don't consider it some big amazing thing.
Yeah.
But I did not enjoy Matt turning on Jeff. I thought it was nonsensical and I thought it was not well done. I give them grace on that. It lacked logic, and the reason it did is because it was literally on the fly because, once again, wrestling leaks fucking everything up.
Yeah, exactly. And with that being said, that's part of the reason why I was lowly invested in this feud, because I was just like, okay, where's the build up for this and where's the story? And it was just mainly, okay, we just want to turn Matt heel with no motive and no reason why other than you're copying off of Brett and Owen from years back.
Well, and it was two guys who did not have the charisma on the mic that the other two had. And just didn't have a long enough history of tension built up between them. It was just missing.
Yeah, although as far as like mic skills go, I slightly give the edge more to Matt than I do Jeff. Not that I'm biased for the namesake, for the record, folks.
100%.
I'm just saying.
Matt Hardy is the better character creator out of the two. Jeff Hardy is just Jeff Hardy.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, and to quote Jim Ross on the Hardy's DVD, Jeff is the sizzle and Matt's the steak.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep. Oh, speaking of Matt Hardy, I actually have two betrayals that I just thought of. This is actually one I just thought of, and that was the love triangle between Edge, Matt Hardy, and Lita.
Oh my god. I cannot believe I did not think about putting that on there. I was just thinking like partners and stuff like that. But shit, that was an ultimate betrayal.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, for the longest time, ever since the start of her career, nobody booed Lita. Like, how could you boo Lita? But finding that out, and this is all thanks to dirt sheets and the internet and all that stuff, you hear the fans chanting, "You screwed Matt," after Matt Hardy was unceremoniously fired.
Well, Matt Hardy deserved to be fired for how he was acting.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, it was unprofessional, but how much more can that take? Though? Yeah.
It was highly unprofessional. How people treated Lita after that, this feud in particular gets me very angry. How people treated and still to this day continue to treat Lita because of that situation pisses me off. It deified Edge. It made him the man. He was the rated R superstar.
Oh yeah, he was the golden boy.
He was the golden boy, and it made her a slut. It made her the whore. And that's fucking bullshit, and that's misogyny, and that's stupid, and that's male wrestling fans for you. And then, so Lita's, Edge got to have this decorated, wonderful career after that. He's terrible. And it's just now, in recent times, when people realize, hey, we did Lita really shitty back then. I mean, like, this is a woman who got Stone Cold Steve Austin level pops. Arguably more to open doors in the business for women than the majority of the roster at the time.
Yeah.
And you're doing a storyline where she's retiring. You're going to have her lose, which that's fine. They do that to a lot of people. But she's losing.
Yep.
And Prime Time is coming out, taking her underwear and vibrators and shit out of a bag. That is how you repay a woman who has made you millions of dollars, who worked through injuries, who established a foundation for women's wrestling. That's how you repay her.
Yeah. Well, off topic, you can't be surprised, Brandie, because on Mickey James on the way out for Mickey James, they gave her a trash bag.
Yeah. Exactly. And that wasn't 10 years ago, 20 years ago. That was 2 years ago, something like that.
Yep, facts.
This trash bag your shit.
Yep. So you really can't pretty much be surprised on how WWE does stuff as far as pretty much treating the wrestlers the way they should be and just basically valuing what they contributed to their business. But the reason I wanted to talk about this is because that whole love triangle was a genuine feud that almost every guy can relate to, where he's literally been done dirty after giving years of his life and heart and soul to a relationship and then realize it wasn't going to turn out to be anything. But that's just my take on that.
Well, that's the take that they put on television. The thing is when you listen to interviews between the two after that, you find out a little more about what was really going on in Matt Hardy's life, Lita's life at the time. And story changes a little bit. Things get a little different.
Right.
It's not just I'm one of those. I'm not condoning cheating. I'm just saying there's a lot of reasons why people may cheat. And while I personally would don't foresee ever in my particular future being someone who would rather not speak about being unhappy in my relationship, people choose to do that every day. And it was iconic for Edge's career and Matt Hardy's career at the cost of Lita's career, and that's why I don't fuck with it.
Right.
Just from a woman's perspective, I don't fuck with it.
Yep.
Because to this day, people don't know what happened between them. People don't even know that they're fucking cool now. There's no bad blood between them now.
Nope, not at all. And it just goes to show that if you hold on to resentment or if you hold on to any kind of anger, that's exhausting. It's very exhausting. But
yeah, no, I don't fuck with that storyline because of course the woman gets done dirty.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lita was dating Matt. Edge was straight up married.
Yeah. Yeah, right. And I was going to say, two wrongs don't make a right. And that's where we're going to leave that at. And we're going to move on to my next reality-based betrayal. Are you ready for this, Brandie?
Yep.
Roll the drums for me. My number one betrayal is the Montreal Screwjob.
Dun, dun, dun.
And it's like I said to you, Brandie, right before we started recording this and going live, that is the most reality-based betrayal that anybody could think of in the wrestling business when it comes to betrayals, because it was so real and it was just like raw emotion, all from Vince McMahon, all from Shawn Michaels, and especially the one that got the shitty end of the stick, Bret Hart.
Yeah.
And that is a good example of Ides of March and people conspiring rather, to completely screw over or betray the person just to get their leg up, or just to have the advantage.
Yeah,
and mostly get their title back.
Yeah, that's a very good example of Ides of March, not just in like character, but like you said, off-screen, reality-based. This was happening during a time where, according to people who worked there at the time, that Shawn was really difficult to work with, and Bret was never seen as difficult to work with in a sense that Shawn was, but it was just two very strong-headed men going head-to-head about that, and then Bret not wanting.
Yeah.
There's this misconception. I think it was Bruce Pritchard talking about it.
Right.
That there was no, there was nothing else that could be done. There was no other time the title could have been dropped or something. And that has come out to be not true, that there was still time and opportunity for the title to change. All Brett wanted, and he was consistent about this throughout his career. He's like, I can't lose in Canada. Like, I'm their literal hero. We can't do it in Canada. And so his thing was, I'll drop the belt. I just don't want to drop it to Sean in Canada.
Right. And
there were
yep.
opportunities to do it at another time, and they chose it.
Sure.
Vince McMahon chose to do it that way.
Sure. And that was the thing. They had plenty of time where they could have dropped it into any of the other cities that they were going to wrestle in the States, and more than likely Brett would have been fine with it. But they chose to do it in Canada. They choose to do these underhanded things, and just literally led to basically what it is, and that it was a screw job.
Yeah. And coincidentally, it led to, Bret Hart was on his way out the door. It soured him with the WWE for a long time. He went to WCW, had a much less lackluster run over there.
Yeah, it was about as effective as a fart in church.
That's why I don't tend to enjoy this situation, and even going back to the Lita and Edge situation. They're tricky because both of those situations changed professional wrestling history in a substantial way. So as much as you're like, man, I wish that didn't happen, at the same time, them happening caused important stuff to happen going forward. Unfortunately, so in that kind of situation where it's real life drama like that, unfortunately, someone always suffers. And
sure.
And with them, Lita suffered in this particular one. Sadly, Bret Hart suffered.
Yep. And I'm just saying this, I side with Bret on this one.
Given the fact that there were still several days left that he could drop the title, I have to agree with him as well.
Yep, definitely, because.
But.
Go ahead.
But if it didn't happen the way it happened, Mr. McMahon would never have been born. The character Mr. McMahon wouldn't have happened.
I was just getting ready to round out to that point. We wouldn't have got Mr. McMahon, who is in, I can't speak for anybody else's countdown, the best heel in the business. And the reason for that is because, and the reason for that is because everybody hates the asshole billionaire boss. And Vince had that in spades.
Yeah. The Mr. McMahon character, one of the most, if not the most influential heel, definitely of the Attitude Era, maybe in the entirety of professional wrestling. I've been using this word a lot, but he's a prolific character. So that's the problem with that real drama. But also that real drama has created some of the most influential, like I said, influential moments in wrestling. Without Mr. McMahon to play off of, would Steve Austin have gotten as big?
Yep, or The Rock.
Steve Austin Steve Austin and Rock, Triple H. Those are three backbones of the Attitude Era.
Yep, and better off yet, I'll throw another name out there, Mick Foley.
Yeah, I almost forgot about Mickey.
And here's the thing about WWE when Vince started becoming an active character. If you had a feud with Vince and you got over, especially whether you're a super villain like Triple H when Vince was a babyface, or Vince was a heel and you're a Stone Cold Steve Austin type babyface, or The Rock, or even Mankind when he won the title, I still never forget it. That was a moment you don't forget. And that's what kind of got you over if you had a feud with Vince, because that held weight to the kind of superstar you were going to be.
Well, I have one more on my list. That is, we're bringing it out of the darkness that is the real life ones.
All right. Shall I drum roll?
Yeah, sure. We'll do a drum roll for this. Why not?
All right. Here we go.
My final entry is when Seth Rollins turned on the Shield.
Ah, yes. That also made my list.
Talking about a feud that launched superstars. This launched 3 main eventers. And did you know? So one, I remember everyone thought it was going to be Dean. But did you know the original plan wasn't for Seth, it was for Roman to turn?
That was actually my first thought. I was like, because honestly, Brandie, I was thinking hypothetically, what if the Shield were to implode? Who would you turn first? More than likely, it'd be Dean because Dean was great on the stick, but Roman was that stake heavy powerhouse that had the look and was more likely something that Vince McMahon wanted. And later on, he became that, especially becoming the tribal chief. But Seth was the furthest thing from my mind. If anything, I thought Seth probably would have been a babyface because of his moveset.
Yeah.
And he proved that fact wrong.
You know, I'm trying to remember from that time frame. I really thought when they split up, I was like, if they ever split up the Shield, Roman's going to go on to be a main event guy, and the other two are just going to kind of fall to the wayside. I was like, Seth will probably be a pretty popular babyface for a little bit. Dean will just continue to fall down the ladder, which sucked because I really liked Dean Ambrose. I enjoy his crazy kind of character. Is his wrestling always the best? No. Is his character usually good? Yes. So I really enjoyed Dean, and I was very happy to see the path that they took that didn't lead to him falling down to the obscurity. But yeah, I was shocked. I did not know that it was originally supposed to be Roman to turn.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember being very shocked that it was Seth to turn.
Yep. And I think a lot of people were. And it comes back to the point I made earlier that if you see Seth's moveset, that's a moveset of a babyface because he was doing dives over the rope. He was doing Phoenix splashes. Just like all the things you would see. It's almost like a much more high flying Jeff Hardy mixed with Rey Mysterio on steroids.
Yeah. And you know, when you have that kind of move set, it's impressive, but it does pigeonhole you to a certain degree.
Mm-hmm. And to touch on Seth Rollins, I'll tell you what, he's really impressed me with his character work, especially over the years. And in my personal opinion, from his first heel run up until the run he has now, where he's coming out with the suits and dancing to his theme song, like this dude to me is great as a heel. And I felt a bit indifferent about Seth Rollins because of the not so nice things he would say about New Japan or AEW. But I'll tell you what, I really dig Seth, especially this version of Seth.
Yeah. This kooky Seth, I just like it.
Yep.
It's just good fun.
Yep, definitely. And it makes him fun to watch too.
For sure.
Yep. I'm just curious, honestly, speaking of Seth Rollins, to see what they're going to do with him for WrestleMania because you can't leave Seth Rollins off the show.
No, you can't. I haven't heard, and I haven't gone looking. So.
Yep, me neither.
I
want to be
surprised.
Yep, same here. I want to keep the magic.
A friend of mine messaged me and said she's a big Stone Cold fan, and she's like, "Can we watch this together? Stone Cold's coming back." I was like, "Yeah, it's fine."
Oh, totally. Because everybody's interested to see what Stone Cold's going to do, and me and a friend of mine the other night actually talked about what Stone Cold was probably going to walk out in. And I thought more than likely it's probably going to be a WrestleMania T-shirt relating to Texas, some jeans, and probably his signature like Stone Cold boots that he usually wears.
I have heard that he's not really too thrilled with this return, and I don't know if I believe that, because why would he do it if he doesn't? Maybe he hasn't been thrilled with the build-up, but like Kevin Owens will put on a great match with him, so I don't think it would be the match he'd be disappointed with as much as maybe the build-up.
Yeah. I was gonna say I don't think so much it's gonna be a match or anything, Brandie. And this is just my take on it. It's going to be more like a segment that's going to involve like a fight, and then after that, Stone Cold probably hitting a quick stunner, and then after that's the end of the segment.
Yeah,
I'll be down.
Okay, I'm just happy to see him. I'll just be happy to hear the grass break.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, absolutely.
See him come out, because Steve Austin. Me and my friend were talking about this. We're like, Steve Austin's still fine as hell. Like they say, I don't even know how old he is right now. He's still fine as hell. But
well, he's in great shape for being, I guess, what, in his 50s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
her husband is like, he's been a bodybuilder and stuff like that before. He's like, what kind of body type do you think is like the sexiest on a man? And she was like, Stone Cold forever.
Yeah, but yeah, he's 57 years old. Holy cow, still in decent shape.
The majority of women would still hit it.
I was gonna say I'm a bit jealous. I hope I look like that, or at least I'm in that decent kind of shape when I'm 57. Just saying.
How long has Stone Cold been bald? Damn, he's been bald forever. I see pictures of him with hair, and I'm like, no, sir, no hair.
Nah, that is not Stone Cold Steve Austin. Maybe stunning Steve Austin.
Yeah, I'm just like, there's a picture of him with hair and no goatee, and I'm like, no.
Nice. Nice.
Well,
Yeah, definitely.
Do you have any that just didn't work for you? Because we spoke earlier about one that just didn't work for me, but I have one left that was a term that just did not work for me at all. We talked about Matt and Jeff not working, and this is another sibling angle, and it was Nikki Bella and Brie Bella's bullshit. It started off strong, but the fact that Brie just never got her revenge on Nikki, there was no payoff to that.
No,
the payoff
not at
to
all.
That was Brie becoming Nikki's lapdog and turning on AJ, and they tried to play it off as getting her back for what she did to Daniel Bryan, and I'm like, okay, you could have expanded that storyline. You could have had Brie turn on Nikki, help AJ, have a whole situation where she's helping AJ, and then turn on AJ again to go back to being with Nikki and being like, blood's thicker than water. But you wrapped it all up in one night and made Brie such a weenie.
Yeah.
I never liked Brie Bella as a heel.
Yeah, she's more babyface-ish, and Nikki Bella, and I've made this phrase before, she had that in spades. Like, a lot of fans wanted to see Nikki Bella lose her title, but she had that long title run that happened to pass AJ Lee's.
Yeah. Nikki Bella was made to be a heel. She was a great heel. But Brie Bella, people wanted to like her. There was something intrinsic, especially after the reality TV show came out and you got to see her and Daniel Bryan together, and just how like sweet they are as a couple, and how supportive she was to him and stuff. Like, you saw Nikki on there with John Cena, and you're like, it didn't. But you saw Brie with Bryan, which is just like, man, what a sweet wife and girlfriend she is, And so, like, when she started doing stuff with Bryan, people just took to her immediately. They wanted to like her because she herself is a likable person.
Right.
Bella a little bougie.
Yeah.
People not as apt to like her. She's not the more likable twin.
Right.
She was. And so it's just going back to their feud, it just never made sense. And I know in times past with the Royal Rumble, there's this whole freaking outdated thing where Brie finally this past Rumble got to be the one to push Nikki off instead of Nikki pushing her off. And I'm like, yeah, it's a few years too late. No one gives a crap if Brie gets a comeuppance on her now.
Yeah, exactly.
A long time ago. But yeah, that is a sister versus sister. Had the opportunity to be a really good. Had that stupid fucking Jerry Springer segment. I wish you had died in the womb.
Yeah, like really, was that even necessary?
No, it was by far the stupidest fucking thing. Just awful. Just awful.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, that's the last one on my list, and that is one that I just gets under my skin every time.
Yeah, and speaking of which, of feuds that didn't work or turns that didn't work was this one actually sticks out to me for the time being. But this would be when CM Punk had his Long Live the King version with taking over the Nexus and overthrowing Wade Barrett.
Oh yeah.
And having the Nexus now side with CM Punk and following CM Punk. It was just like one of those things where, okay, we see it coming because Punk already led the Straight Edge Society. He was also a leader of the Second City Saints for those that follow Ring of Honor. Yeah. So Punk is used to being a leader. He's only going to co-pilot or take that back seat for a certain amount of time until eventually he's going to be like, you know what? This is my group, motherfucker. I'm taking over the Nexus. And then eventually he went on to become the best in the world. And it's like, fuck this, I don't need the Nexus. And ended up having an awesome career.
Yeah.
While the Nexus kind of fell into obscurity.
For sure. Nexus was one of those situations that it got killed, and I'm pretty sure it got killed because of John Cena.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Big Match John.
Yeah.
Yep, God forbid.
I don't know if y'all hear that in the background, but that's a motorcycle driving past my house. I swear the people next door to me, they every time I turn around, they just have some kind of new something. But just like you go outside, there's their cars. Next day, there's an RV. Next day, there's a motorcycle. I'm like, where are you getting all this? But yeah, I see what you're talking about on that one.
Yeah, definitely. But the only thing I remember out of that whole moment is it kind of reminded me of that Scar from the Lion King saying, "Long live the king," after he threw Mufasa off the cliff and killed him and then blamed it on Simba. But that's a Disney salty moment that I'm just gonna put in the back seat. But yeah, it was just one of those where I was just like, whatever. We knew it was coming.
Yeah, I understand. Well, we've gotten to the end of our list of instances to talk about, and we're running a little long. We're already in an hour and a half.
Yeah, how about it? Yeah, we lost track of time.
One of the things that the second thing we were going to talk about is what makes a good betrayal and what makes a bad betrayal. And we have touched on that a little bit, but we can talk about that for just a little bit here.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And it comes back to what makes a good betrayal is there has to be something on the person who is looking to make the betrayal or make the heel turn. They have to have a motive and they have to have a reason why they're making the betrayal. They just can't make it for the sake of possibly getting over with the fans. It has to be a deeper rooted story than that, because at the end of the day, you want your audience to relate and you want them to be invested. And if it's a heel turn, you want them to be pissed off. If it's a face turn, you want them to absolutely get behind you for the reason why. And I'll give this as a good example why Wardlow wanted to break away from MJF. He wanted to be free. He wanted to be on his own. And he felt like MJF was holding him back.
Yeah, and then there were several instances that you could see where that was happening and that he was being disrespected. You know, it's like you got to tell the story and give examples.
Yep, exactly. And it comes back to the point of you got to have a motive.
Yeah. And I think for the most part, other than situations with like the Jeff Hardy and Matt Hardy situation where it was like something thrown together really fast because who was supposed to do it got leaked.
Yep,
That
Christian.
that you do usually get some kind of build up to it. It's just getting the fans invested in it.
Right, exactly. And it comes back to you have to be able to tell a good hero versus villain story. And I had a conversation about this, a little bit of a sidebar point, but I, I was explaining to somebody this is the reason why I love professional wrestling, because it's a good illustration of hero versus villain, good guy versus bad guy. It's just told very physically.
Yeah, that's for sure. And then the follow up is just as important. Like, once
Mm-hmm.
you've got the story built and the betrayal happens, as we
Mm-hmm.
see case in point with the Bella Twins feud, you there has to be some kind of comeuppance. There's got to be some kind of redemption.
Yeah.
Uh,
Uh,
the Trish Stratus situation you were talking about earlier, she got her comeuppance on
mm-hmm.
Chris Jericho. She got him back. That's why that was such a good moment.
Right, right. And that's the same thing with reality based feuds, kind of like the Montreal screw job, because it created a very what's the word for it? Oh, I know what the word I was looking for. A polarizing villain like a Mr. McMahon,
Yeah,
where you just wanted to see him get his ass kicked every week. And you basically have also been created by, you also created Stone Cold Steve Austin or The Rock or Triple H or Mick Foley, like we mentioned earlier,
yeah, exactly.
where, where you have good heroes and villains that kick Vince McMahon's ass.
For sure. Well, Matt, I think that we have wrapped it up pretty
Yep,
well.
yep. I think it sums it up, and I think we're ready to head on home, Brandy.
We're ready to take it home. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode. We got a little heated, we got on little tangents, but ultimately we stayed pretty on task.
Oh, yeah, totally, for the most part.
Yeah. Once again, all our love to Scott Hall and his family. Big E, hope you're recovering
Yep,
well.
yep.
Wrestling Fluency Community, it's nice to be back in your presence again.
Yep, definitely. And to those two guys, we got your back, and we hope that you two have speedy recoveries and hope all turns out well.
Well, this has been your Alabama Slammer,
And this is the Moneymaker Heartbreaker, champion of time, $1 Million Matt.
and we will catch you in the next episode.
All right. Peace out, y'all.
Bye.